like hysteria, mass hysteria bordering on insanity. That's what they call us, isn't it? The enemies of Ahlul Bayt, who don't hate you because of who you are, or because of your identity or your race or your nationality. They don't even know who you are. They hate you and they hate me and they hate the followers of Ahlul Bayt because they follow Ahlul Bayt. Because those people hate Ahlul Bayt. A very good example happened this year. We were gathered around with roughly about 300-400 brothers and sisters, and I was lecturing to them about how there is an inherent animosity towards Ahlul Bayt that I simply cannot explain. When you tell someone, why don't you recite the full salawat where you mention the household and the progeny of the Prophet? Why is it that you just mention the name of the Prophet when the Prophet himself says that this salawat of yours is wrong? It's incomplete. It's like an engine, half of which is missing. It's useless. In fact, if anything, it proves that you don't like me. You don't love me as your Prophet. Because I've asked you to mention my family and you choose not to. You defy my orders. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad wa ala. And a small example that I mentioned was this. I said, go to the Baqi' and ask the people who are paid to harass the pilgrims. They're literally paid to harass the pilgrims, nothing else. They've memorized a couple of verses, a couple of false traditions, attributed and concocted and attached to the Prophet of Islam, and they get paid to walk around and harass people. I said, go up to one of them and ask them who's buried in that little spot where thousands of people are concentrating on. Who's buried there? I could see very clearly marked 4 graves, one in front and a 6th one on the side. Who are these 4 people? Who's that 5th guy? Who's the 6th grave? And you know what they'll tell you? They'll tell you, we don't know. I remember once this happened and right before my eyes. A person said, we don't know. I said, why do you do that? Why do you have a problem with Imam al-Hasan? Isn't this the Sibt, the grandson of Rasulullah? Isn't this man who's buried right there and you know for damn sure that that is Imam al-Hasan? Isn't he the one who's been labeled by the Prophet of Islam as the master of the youth of paradise? In a paradise where there are no elderly? Isn't that the same son, that same grandson that the Prophet used to hold on his back and walk around on on his 2 hands and his 2 legs and say, Na'mal Rakibani antuma wa ni'mal matiyatu matiyatukuma. You are the best riders. The Prophet used to refer to Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein. And the best camel that carries these 2 best riders is yours. Referring to himself. Isn't this Imam al-Hasan? But they'll turn around with the utmost audacity and say, we don't know who's buried there. But by the way, in case you're wondering, Uthman is buried in that spot. When did I ever ask you about Uthman? How come you know where Uthman is buried, but you don't know where the Prophet's grandson is buried? They have a problem with the Prophet himself. Put Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein on the side. So I was speaking to these brothers and sisters. I was saying this and mentioned this same story when suddenly 2 people grabbed my arm. I looked around and there were 2 of those people paid to harass the pilgrims. And they said to me, what are you doing? I said, I'm just explaining the rules of the pilgrimage. We're here to perform the pilgrimage. I'm explaining to them what we ought to do and what we ought to know. He said, no, you're not. I just heard you mention Hassan and Hussein. Leave. You said Hassan and Hussein. That's the bottom line. That's the problem. If I'd mentioned any other names, it wouldn't have been an issue. But you said Hassan and you said Hussein, and that burns them from the very, from inside. I said, fine, we don't want any trouble. I looked at the congregation and I said, I rest my case. The point is, brothers and sisters, Imam al-Hussein They see us mourning for him, they call us insane. 300 million of us. 5 million homes open their doors every single year to commemorate the occasion of Ashura. 5 million Husayniyat worldwide. That's a big number. That's a very big number. Over 10 million visit Imam al-Hussein on the day of the Arba'een. 10 million. One day I was walking in the streets of Karbala and I looked at the majestic shrine, the mausoleum of Imam al-Hussein, and the multitudes of people, the masses going towards the shrine in order to pay their respects and offer their salutations to the Master of the Youth of Paradise. And I said to myself, imagine, let's just go back in time, 14 centuries. What would I see here? Would I see any indication of what is happening today? Absolutely not. Think about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to support His servant because He supported him. Universal law, no questions asked. A little girl by the name of Ruqayyah, or according to some other accounts, Sukaina. She cries in the ruins of Sham. Eventually, she dies out of grief and sorrow. No one's there to offer her any consolation. No one's there to lend a helping hand. No one's even there to help heal the bruised body of hers, which was bruised and battered because of the beatings and the lashes that she'd been receiving for the past 2 months. Was there any indication at the time? Imagine the position of Bibi Zainab on that day when she gets up in front of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and says to him, "Inni la astahqiru qadrak." I don't even see you worthy of my response, of me giving you an answer to your questions. Was she able to picture what is happening today? One of the things that really shows the greatness of Bibi Zainab is that particular stance that she took. The fact that even though she was broken, she was overwhelmed with grief, she was sorrow-stricken, but she was able to tell the future because of her reliance on this universal law. She knew that this was not going to be lost, that a price was paid to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that a product, something in return was going to be given to them. Which is why she said to her nephew, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when Imam Zayn al-Abidin begins to tremble, she was about to pick him up, and Imam Zayn al-Abidin was falling up and down, falling unconscious and regaining consciousness. And she said to him, "Ya baqiyat al-awwaleen, you're the only remaining member of this household. Fidaka abi wa ummi, may I and my parents be ransomed for you. You're the only hope that we have. You're the only hope that this world has. You're the only hope that humanity has. What are you doing to yourself?" Imam Zayn al-Abidin says to her, "How could I not go through this when I look at the bodies of my father and my brothers and my uncles mutilated in the middle of the battlefield, with their heads severed, decapitated? How could I not go through this?" Then Bibi Zainab offers him consolation. Look at the way she knows for a fact there's no going around this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to support Imam al-Hussein, and He will immortalize Imam al-Hussein because of what he did on the day of Ashura. She says to him, "Ya ibn akhi, sayunsabu li ahli hadha al-makan alaman." There will be a flag raised for these people. A flag raised high up in the sky that will have multitudes and mass